Week 2 of the NFL preseason for the Miami Dolphins is in the books. They get another win at home in the preseason, winning this one 13-6, an absolute barn burner, if you will. But there were a lot of takeaways to be had from this first or second game of the preseason for Miami, and actually the last one in the 305. The next time the Dolphins play in Miami will actually be Week 1 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like I said, Dolphins did win 13-6. Here are your leading stat for the players. Mike White ended up leading the team in passing with 116 yards as he had to throw the ball every single play in the second half, which we'll talk about in just a second. Chirs Brooks led the way with 63 rushing yards for Miami, including a 59-yarder before getting walked off the field with an injury. Eric Ezukama actually had a pretty decent day, 5 for 65, which we'll talk about as well throughout the show. But some of the main takeaways for this game here isn't really about the backups. The only thing that we should really actually talk about and think about in a realistic way is how the starters looked, because the starting defense got arguably 2 possessions on defense. Not all of them. Calais Campbell and Zach Sealer only played 1 possession. But the starting offense, they played 1 possession, which ultimately was actually just the first quarter. Quite literally, the Dolphins offense had 1 possession in the first quarter. And they looked absolutely terrific. Tua Tagovailoa was fantastic. He went 5 of 5 for 51 yards and a touchdown. He was sharp. He was decisive. He was accurate. And I cannot get over that 4th and 2 at the, about 20-yard line, 18-yard line, and they just run a simple slot fade with River Cracraft, and Tagovailoa on 4th and 2. Got to have it, big-time play. Usually think of trying to hit a quick hitter past the sticks. No, he goes for it all and delivers an absolute dime on the sideline in the end zone to River Cracraft to cap off our touchdown drive for the Dolphins. And if we're going to be honest, as much as I'd love to see Tagovailoa play more in the preseason just because it's fascinating and fun to watch a quarterback with his decision-making and precision accuracy play in the NFL, it's time to put him on ice. We saw everything we needed to see from Tua. He got out there, he processed, he ran the offense, he had command, hit his man in stride, delivered a dart on 4th down for a tutty. He did everything that you could possibly have wanted him to do. After getting that massive contract just a couple of weeks ago, where he's getting paid $53.1 million and $212 million over the next 4 seasons, it's nice to know that after a nice little 7-8 months hiatus of playing meaningful football, he's able to go out there. Granted, not the craziest defense, also some backups of Washington, but able to dice him up and deliver a touchdown drive. That's probably the one thing that I am most happy about this preseason game. What was your biggest takeaway from this game, though? Let me know. Could be Tua, could be the backup quarterbacks, could it be the way Cam Smith played on defense, Chop Robinson, Mohamed Kamara? There are some things we have to take away from this ball game, but make sure you let me know about it down in the comment section. All right, let's talk about some of the other quarterbacks on this Dolphins roster now. Skylar Thompson got the first snaps behind Tua Tagovailoa. He basically played the entire second quarter and a little bit into the third quarter. He was fine, 7 of 14, 64 yards, nothing crazy. Can't really go out there and say he lit it up. I'm not going to do that at all. He had a nice throw to Devon Achane down the right side of the field on what looked like a cover 2. And Achane, who was actually split out wide in a 5 empty formation, just ran a vertical route down the sideline, and they connected for a massive play. I believe that catch was 26 yards in length, and he had 2 catches for 34 yards. Achane played a little bit behind Raheem Mostert in this one, but, I mean, it's just so evident that this running back committee is going to be so dynamic. Mostert, your better runner between the tackles and more experienced guy. Achane, your utility back that just has blazing speed, can do it in the passing game, can do it in the run department, can do it on swings, pitches, tosses, inside zones, doesn't matter. And then Jalen Wright's going to be your third wild card guy where he can give you a lot of nice things and make some home run plays for this team. I will say this. I don't need to see Achane again for the preseason. I don't need to see Mostert again. I like that they all got 1 or 2 possessions out there today, and I'm confident in their ability that they'll be ready for September 8th. No need to see them again. I do want to mention Jonnu Smith because he was featured quite a bit in the first half of this football game. 4 catches, 23 yards, and I was very, very happy with what he was able to provide for the Miami Dolphins. And I've talked a lot about it this offseason, about how I think Jonnu Smith's signing before free agency opened on a 2-year deal went very much under the radar and should not have been put underneath the radar. This is the best yards after catch tight end in the NFL. The only two that have been in the same even stratosphere as Jonnu Smith is Travis Kelce and George Kittle. Like, when Jonnu Smith gets the ball in his hands, he is incredibly effective for this team. And I truly do believe an offense that has not featured the tight end a lot over the past 2 seasons as Mike McDaniels took over this Dolphins team, Smith will get that opportunity to be a difference maker for the Miami Dolphins. Because when you talk about how they haven't gotten a lot of production from tight ends in the past, well, you know what they haven't had? A competent tight end. They had Mike Gesicki, who's a corpse out there 2 years ago, and they had Durham Smythe last year. And I don't want to discredit those two guys, but Jonnu Smith is just simply a better tight end at all facets of the football game, and I am excited to see him. Before we get to the Commanders and talk about PrizePicks, I do want to quickly mention River Cracraft here, who has been absolutely phenomenal during the training camp portion and had a really good first drive for the Miami Dolphins. Now, injury news as well. He did leave this game right after that first possession and ultimately went to the locker room. But Cracraft on that first drive with Tua in the starting offense that they threw out there, 2 receptions, 29 yards, a touchdown, like I mentioned, had that 16-yard touchdown on 4th and 2, running a nice little slot fade where Tua put it on the money. River Cracraft, though, ran a perfect route, leveraging the corner a little bit inside so he could have room to the outside at the boundary where Tua placed it perfectly. And Cracraft also had a nice little 13-yard catch on a nice little quick in route after some motion. Cracraft looked really good. And I don't want to say he's a roster lock, but I can confidently say that he is going to be on the 53-man final roster. My prediction right now, long way to go, still 10 days until that cuts have to be made, but it would be Hill, Waddle, OBJ, Cracraft, Malik Washington, and Braxton Berrios as my top 6 wide receivers. All right, make sure you are started with PrizePicks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in the North America states. I mean, it's just the best. It really is. I play it on a daily basis, and I actually won in this game tonight because they offered a free stat total in Israel Adesanya in the fighting world, more than half a significant strike. You would have known about this because we would have told you about it leading up to tonight's main event. I took more than Jalen Wright, 30.5 rushing yards, but he was out, so that just got voided and taken out. So my 3-player entry was Izzy Adesanya, more than River Cracraft, 13.5 receiving yards. He had 29, and I took less than on Ben Sinnott, the tight end from Washington, to have less than 17.5 receiving yards. He had 10. So I ultimately ended up winning 5 times my money on this entry. You can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Get started today with PrizePicks. Code CLNS gets you a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. You can also click on that link. That's in the description and comments of today's video. Shout out to PrizePicks. Run your game. All right, let's talk a little about the Dolphins' defense now, as we've talked mostly about the offense. I'll be honest, Jaden Daniels played 2 possessions for this Commanders' offense. He basically played the entire first quarter, and he kind of was slicing and dicing this Dolphins' defense. Now, granted, Javon Holland, Jordan Poyer, Jalen Ramsey weren't out there, but everybody else basically was. Cam Smith was your CB2. Kader Kohu was in the nickel. Kendall Fuller was your CB1 for the day. David Long Jr. was out there. Jordan Brooks was out there. Marcus May and Elijah Campbell were your starting safeties. But the defensive line of Quentin Bell, Emmanuel Ogbah, Zach Sealer, Calais Campbell, they were out there. And, I mean, Jaden Daniels was good. He led 2 drives, one that resulted in a field goal, one that resulted in a missed field goal. So Daniels was very good at moving down the field, which tells me maybe there's some stuff that this Dolphins defense has to work on. And one thing that I also think shouldn't be overshadowed either is the fact that the Commanders had a lot of success in the running game today. They, as a team, ran for 111 yards on 22 attempts. That resulted in 5 yards per carry. Jeff Driscoll had its 41-yard carry in a scramble that really diced up the defense. Brian Robinson, though, 3 carries, 22 yards, and averaging 7.3 yards per carry. So that's the only concern a little bit, is that starting defense kind of got torched in the running department, if you will. Hopefully that's not something and signs to come for this upcoming season. But when we're talking about the Dolphins defense, I think our biggest takeaway at least for me, is the play of Cam Smith in the first half. And I do want to talk about his injury, too, in here in just a second. But Cam Smith, he started this game as CB2, the opposite of Kendall Fuller. On the first drive of the game, when the Commanders marched down the field, Cam Smith was heavily targeted. He was targeted 3 times on that possession, and there was 2 completions by Terry McLaurin. McLaurin had, 2 catches, 27 yards. One came on a pivotal third down. McLaurin just beat him on a little fake fade, comeback, caught it, made Cam Smith miss, and ran for another 10 yards. Smith started off really bad, and in our watch party, we were talking like, well, this isn't the best start for Cam Smith, who really needs to prove that he belongs and should get more playing time after missing most of training camp. Ultimately comes back, plays extremely well for the rest of the first half. He played the entire first half, basically. I'm trying to pull up his exact stats right now, but he ultimately had 4 tackles, 1 PBU, and I think producer Matt Goldman would agree with me this if he was here. Is like he clearly was really good at making tackles at the point. There was a couple times where he was just playing a zone defense, protected the sticks on the boundary, backed up, read the keys. Quarterback Jeff Driscoll, Jane Daniels dropped it down in the flat. Cam Smith came up and made a tackle. And one that really stood out to me was a tight end flashed right in front of him. He caught it, and on 3rd and about 7, it was a 3 or 4 yard pass. Cam Smith comes up, makes the tackle 3 yards past the line of scrimmage, and just holds them up there, holding on for dear life, but ultimately brings them down and allows other defenders for the Dolphins to come over and finish the tackle. That's really tough for a corner of his stature to do against bigger tight ends, and it just shows the willingness and ability to get up and make a tackle. Cam Smith, I really liked what I saw from him in the first half after a rough first drive. Now, unfortunately for Cam Smith, he did leave the game in the second half with an injury, and it was being reported in the locker room by Omar Kelly, which take it with what you will because he's had some interesting notes on players limping or not. But he said that Cam Smith was limping inside the locker room. He limped off the field in the fourth quarter with grabbing his little hamstring, and that's not good because hamstrings are nothing to deal with, and those injuries could take 3 weeks to 4 weeks to really heal up in full. And it's unfortunate that it happened playing special teams, but I don't hate that he was on special teams because to me, it really felt like in order for him to provide the most value to this roster that he can, special teams was going to have to be in the cards for Cam Smith. So it's just unfortunate that he had to leave with an injury, but we will keep you updated on every injury that the Dolphins sustained in this game and all the news for Miami, which is why I need to be subscribed. Tons of injuries. David Long Jr. left with a hand injury. There was a injury to, who was it? Zeke Vanderbilt, Cam Smith, obviously, River Cracraft. There's a lot of injuries out there today. Can't really bring them all to my head right now. But, man, it's unfortunate. But that's why you are subscribed to the channel, because we will make sure you're covered on everything for the Miami Dolphins. So hit that sub button.